So I took to X the other day and I asked Bills Mafia, what are your hot takes for the 2024 season? We got some very optimistic answers, and then we also ended up getting some very negative ones. But today I am going to be going through all of the responses and giving you my feedback on them, whether or not I agree or I do not. But super excited to dive into this. Now, right before we do, I need to give a giant shout out to both of our local sponsors. Number one is Picasso's. This is truly Buffalo pizza, folks. 4 great locations in the Western New York area. And if you are not in Buffalo, have no fear. They are delivering nationwide. Use code PARADE if you do it to save 20% off. That's Buffalo Pizza, ladies and gentlemen. Last but not least, we have Batavia Downs, all right, sponsoring this video once again. And if you folks are looking for a place to go to prior to the Buffalo Bills and Arizona Cardinals matchup on Sunday, you definitely need to check out the Vodka, Gin, and Potato Festival. September 7th from 4 to 6 p.m. Thurman Thomas is going to be making an appearance as well. Definitely go on ahead and kill some time before kickoff on Sunday. Shout out to Batavia Downs again for sponsoring this video. So as you can see, folks, here is the post that I put on just yesterday. Had quite a few responses, had about 45, so I figured that we are going to be going through the vast majority of them. Starting off with our good friend Steelers Nation Australia, saying that Trubisky starts and leads the Bills to the first Super Bowl win. That is red hot. That is absolutely crazy. That is a fever dream if that were to be the case. Number one, I want nothing to do with Josh Allen injury this year. I could care less what backup quarterback you throw on this roster. If Josh Allen goes down, this team's winning 5 games regardless. The offense was built around Josh Allen, and I will say this as well. A lot of people are not happy that Mitch Trubisky is the guy. Still a lot of question marks of whether or not that he's going to be active on week 1. It's likely going to be Mike White as QB2. But I think that our backup quarterback situation is a bit better than people want to admit. At least Trubisky has starting experience. But as far as leading us to the Super Bowl, that would be absolutely wild. Next up, we have our boy Pete rolling on in, and he's saying that this is Josh's best season by far without Stephon Diggs. And folks, I think you might have heard me say this a couple of times on the channel, and it's almost to a point where I'm beating a dead horse, but I wholeheartedly agree. The second Joe Brady ended up taking over last year, Diggs and Gabe Davis were essentially phased out of this offensive scheme. We saw it revert to Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox in the run game with James Cook. We've added a couple of additional weapons where I think Joe Brady is really going to leverage them. So I would have to agree. Basement floor, I think Josh Allen has the exact same season as last year, and that is basement floor expectations. Now, next up, we have Buffalo's running game will be a 2-headed monster with Cook and Davis. Buffalo wins the East, and Josh goes ham in the playoffs, beating Kansas City in Kansas City, and then winning the Super Bowl. No MVP for Josh again, but we see Spencer Brown drop him through a table during the parade. What a specific take, and my God, how I appreciate it. As far as the 2-headed monster, I definitely agree with you. I am so high on Ray Davis this year. Even to a point where I think he's going to start dominating carries about midway through the season in 2024. And so I love what James Cook can do. He was fantastic last year, but if you're looking for that true north to south sort of running back, Ray Davis is that guy, and he appears to be a bit more consistent when it comes into pass plays. We all remember all the drops James Cook had last year, but regardless, I see big seasons coming from both of these guys, and thank God. Maybe we can actually mitigate some of the rush attempts Josh Allen is going to have to take. For the love of God, we finally have a run game. So next up, we have Laughing at Every Sports Team came in and said, Dolphins sweep the Bills and win the division, and this shouldn't even be a hot take. Number one, this should 1,000% be a hot take. This should also be the last straw for your family members to finally end up sending you off to a mental facility. There is no way on earth that a Miami Dolphins team that had their best chance last year and choked it away is going to win the AFC East. If any team threatens the Bills and this division title, it's going to be the New York Jets. The Miami Dolphins have a very weak offensive line. They have no run defense. I don't care how fast Tua gets the ball out of his hands. If you go up against a quality defensive coordinator, he's going to be able to take away that first read. And quite frankly, I think half of the reason Tua struggles getting past his first read is just because his offensive line can't block long enough for him to go through his progressions. So as far as having all of this, now this blind optimism with the Miami Dolphins is absolutely crazy. And sweeping the Buffalo Bills, come on, dude. Next up, we have Brandon Bean, season 2024, coming on in saying Kyer Elam will get a starting role after an injury and hold on to it for the rest of the season. I mean, well, A lot to unpack there. Number one, I do understand that injuries are a part of the game. I'm certainly not wishing this to be the fact because I have a lot of faith in Rasul Douglas, have a lot of faith in Taron Johnson, and then also Christian Benford. But I would love that. Now I'm getting to a point where if Kyer Elam doesn't end up making significant splash plays and ends up being one of the regular corners that this coaching staff turns to start and actually execute all game, I think that it's safe to say that he was a bust. Going back in that draft, I thought that the only reason we got Kyer Elam was just because the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Trent McDuffie prior to it. But listen, I would love if Kyer can go out there and make some plays. He's a little handsy. If anything, he just needs to watch a little Sauce Gardner tape and learn how to get away with it. Because say that he can clean that up, then he would be absolutely lethal. So the Bills need to be dominant with wins early in the season. I believe the first gauntlet is harder than the back end of the schedule. And I'll tell you what, we do have a gauntlet at the beginning of the season. Starting off with the Arizona Cardinals, shifting over to Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins, Jaguars at home, who we typically struggle against, and then also we end up getting the Baltimore Ravens week 4. If the Buffalo Bills can walk away from there 3-1, I will feel very, very good about it. And I'll also be honest with you, I am glad that we're getting our gauntlet at the beginning of the season. This is certainly an unpopular take, but knock on wood, this is typically when the vast majority of our teams are going to be healthy. And the fact that Joe Brady is going to be having an entire new playbook, not Ken Dorsey's, everyone's wondering what the Buffalo Bills are going to be doing. I have a feeling that it's going to take some time for some of these juggernaut teams to understand, or at least rightfully predict what the Bills are going to do on any given Sunday. So I 1,000% agree, Dorothy, but I'm almost glad that we actually have a gauntlet at the beginning rather than the middle or the end, when obviously that injury bug is going to happen. So, okay, we have Matthew Weedman coming on in saying best outcomes 8-9, and McDermott is finally gone. Most likely outcome 10-7, sneak into the playoffs and blow to a close one in the second round, or blow a close one in the second round. Damn. I'll tell you what, there are still quite a few people that want to see this Buffalo Bills team fall very short of expectations so that Sean McDermott can ultimately end up being fired. And I'll tell you what, I sincerely do not see that happening unless the Buffalo Bills finish well under 500, miss the playoffs entirely. If Sean McDermott makes it to the divisional round, I still think that the Bagulas would give him one more year at least, largely due to the fact that he has an insurance policy. Even though we regularly say on this show that we don't think the absence of Diggs or Gabe Davis or Trey White or Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, you name it, all of our departures in the offseason, that we don't think it's going to be a big deal, that's a scapegoat for McDermott if that were to happen. Once they clean up the cap situation, I think the owners would give him the benefit of the doubt. The only way that McDermott is fired here is as if this team goes like 7-10. It's all right. We actually have this from a Chiefs fan, which is pretty interesting. Let's hear him out. I don't consider it a hot take. Buffalo is the 2nd seed. They accomplish this with fewer yards than in other division-winning years, but the highest efficiency rate. Bills dominate time of possession. Thank you, my friend. Listen, I got to say something about Chiefs fans, right? When it comes into like actual objective analysis, I always turn to them when it comes into them sort of having conversations about quarterbacks, like who they would rather have than Patrick Mahomes. And 9 times out of 10, really outside of Bills-Chiefs matchup weeks, I've always had great interactions with this fan base. And I love this. He's obviously very high on the team, but I wanted to focus on that last sentence, saying Bills dominate time of possession. And folks, let me tell you what, that is going to be the key for this season. Short passes, a lot of death by 1,000 paper cuts, Ray Davis, James Cook, particularly what we saw against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was our game plan. It would have worked against any other team if we didn't have A.J. Klein out there from the couch attempting to cover Travis Kelce. I loved that game plan from Joe Brady, and that's exactly how I anticipate this team to run in 2024. Not necessarily a bunch of like field stretching plays. I'm sure there will be some here and there, but for the most part, I am 1,010% down with that. But time of possession, if we want the Buffalo Bills to truly walk away with the AFC East, that is one thing that we need to absolutely stay at the top of the league of. Dominate that and don't even give these other offenses time to score. I love it. So folks, that's going to have to do it for the hot takes for the 2024 season. There are several other responses that I want each and every single one of you to go check out. So follow me on X at RealDanMitchell if you were curious to see what everybody else had to say. I'm super excited, man. I'm having an Arizona Cardinals YouTuber on Tuesday to discuss everything and anything that has to do with the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals. It's Cardinals week, officially tomorrow. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn on bell notifications, because football is finally back, and I cannot wait to make sure that you guys stay entertained. So hop on in and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Don Mafia Report, and I will see you tomorrow.